Hello and welcome to Hueytown, Alabama. My name's Ken McFarland. I am your host for Rings, Gears, and Opinions. We got a very special guest with us today. Probably one of the kindest guys I've ever met. And he's had a great career in racing, and we're really excited about sharing his story with all of you today. But I want y'all to welcome Richard Orton. Richard, thanks for being here today.
Well, thank you for having me. I will enjoy this and bring back a lot of memories.
It will, and it's here we're going to dig deep into your life and your stories and the good parts and the bad. And we want everybody to be able to get to know Richard at a different level. So we're looking forward to it.
That'll be good.
All right. We're going to start out with your early life and where you were living in Wylam, Alabama.
That's right. Wylam, Alabama, just on the other side of Inslee there. And within shouting distance, it seemed, as two racetracks, Birmingham and Dixie Speedway. And my dad always worked on cars and for some of the car lots around over on 3rd Avenue, and I made some extra money to make it. And I was always bugging him about a race car. Had to have a race car.
So when do you spot a race car, and when do you feel that passion starting to boil inside of you about a race car?
Oh, I had been helping him and everything. And I guess from the time I was, I went from Cushman's to everything else. I remember when I started tinkering with stuff, I had an old service sickle that I had friends. And we had pushed that thing along and then to start hitting. And then I looked up and I done run over a car.
Oh, did you really?
But we always tinkered with little motorcycles and stuff. And I always wanted to race, but knew we didn't have the funds to do it.
So when's the first time you're going to how old are you when you first start going to the racetrack, and what racetrack you going to?
I rode bicycles to BIR, I guess, when I was probably 10 years old. But I also, when Alabama Gang had their shop on top of the tire store over there right in front of BIR, I would go over there, me and my friends, and we'd sit out there and watch Bobby and Donnie Red work on those old cars. And then we'd go home and cut our models into and make little sedan cars. And I had models of all the old modified specials and everything. So that was in early 60s.
Okay, yeah.
Somewhere right in there. But
so you who's your friend that you're running with? You remember the name?
Henry Wright, Jack Goggins, several of them that lived. Well, Lewis Carden, his garage was directly up an alleyway right in front of our front yard. And Lewis would be up there, and he would be building cars. Well, he was drag racing at this time. He had that little rail job, and he was drag racing that thing and doing real well. And so we would be around there watching him, and I just kept hearing those cars on Friday and Saturday night. And I said, Daddy, we got to go. We got to have something. Mm-hmm. So I befriended a guy who was winning races back then. His name was Bobby Rutherford. He lived down on 119. Okay. His mom and dad owned a lot of property down there. And he was driving a Chevrolet, a little 51, I think it was Chevrolet.
Now, how do you befriend Bobby? How do y'all get related?
I would go down to Dixie Speedway and sit in that tree down there by the railroad track, go to the auction with my dad, and then go over to the races. And then sometimes we would sneak in. They'd leave that gate open, and we'd sneak in. But and Bobby, he kind of stuttered it when he talked, and I got to talking to him, and he just become friendlier and friendlier, and he's a little bit older than you. I'm assuming. Yes, he was a little bit older than me.
Yeah. And
one day I asked him, I said, Bobby, you got any race car, anything for sale? He said, I got an old 44 down there. He said, I've got the roll cage put in it, and I got the engine and everything. And he said, I would sell it. And I talked to Daddy, and I don't even remember what we give for it, but we bought it. So I got it home, and we finished putting it together, painted it black, and put 3C on it for Clean Car Corner. Okay. L.E. Morris. You said he used to be your neighbor.
He did, and that surprised me when you told me that, because Mr. Morris and his family, when we moved to Pleasant Grove, was our neighbor. And great car salesman at the Pontiac store for many years and stuff. But yeah, I knew LE, and but I never knew that he had anything to do with any racing. But yeah, so he was a sponsor for your car there.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, I mean, he would say, okay, we all need some oil, some gas. What do we need tonight to run? So, he helped us out. And
would he go to the races with you?
He came down a few times. He wasn't a big everyday had to be there like we were, but he come down sometime, and then you'd go up the next week, pick up a car to work on something and bring home, and he would say, how'd you do? What do you need to do better?
Yeah. Tall man, big man.
Big man. Yeah.
Big man.
I don't know. He's about 7. He might have been 7 foot tall.
He was a big man. That's no doubt.
He was a nice guy too.
He was. So, all right. So you got this 3C.
All right. We got the 3C. We go to Dixie Speedway. We get down there, and I spun it out 2 or 3 times, and then we started to feature. And we started in front of Bobby Rutherford, who is the favorite. And I'm running all over the place, high, low, everywhere else.
Is he helping you with some setup stuff? Did he give
Bobby,
did he give you any advice?
Well, he had the A-frames and all on the front fixed with the Kessler and camber and everything. Had all that done, and all we did was make sure everything was tight and on there.
That's what all the first-time racers does.
Don't
make sure it's tight. Yeah, that's right.
But anyway, and as the race progressed, Bobby come up to the front, and he got behind me, and I pulled down in front of him, and 2 cars passed him, and he lost the race. And I felt bad about that my whole career.
Did he say anything to you?
Well, he said, you got a lot to learn, boy.
That's pretty kind.
Yes, that was kind of, yes. But Lordy mercy, you feel bad. The race probably didn't pay but $125, and you take that $125. I've done it many times. Win the race, go out to the Bessemer Superhighway to the donut shop and get what they call a critter and a little thing of milk, and go home and put some rear brakes on the car, be ready for next Saturday night.
All right, so you run this 3C car for how long?
I ran it about 4 or 5 times, and got to Birmingham one night and got it running pretty good. Daddy had made some extra money working on some cars, and we went over to Rocco and Cheaters and bought 2 Racemaster 1000s, big old tires. And
you putting both of them on the rear, or you putting them on the right side?
They're on the right side.
Put them on the right side.
It was on the right side, and it had a little smaller one on the left rear, and it had some kind of little stock tire on the left front.
Yeah.
But anyway, the race started. I started 4th or 5th. And the guy leading the race, he come off 2. If you're familiar with Birmingham, he slapped the wall. And when he did, I was already committed to go inside. And that big old,
and he's running first, and you're trying.
He's running first, and I didn't got to second.
You're working him. Okay. Yeah.
Well, when he come off the wall there, that 1000 Racemaster of mine ran over the left rear tire of his. And boom, 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 boom. I turned over about 5 or 6 times, and I wound up down there where the entrance was towards the end of the racetrack business over there.
That's a long ways.
And, they had the fence up there, and I tore a bunch of that down.
Did you?
Yeah. Yeah. But it was ironic. My daddy, a little bit more as we started the story, he thought he could drive too, and we had a 51 Chevrolet torpedo body at home.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
So he said, I'm going to race too. I said, okay. And I got out there. I said, I'll hull this thing out. So I started hulling it out. And he put a roll cage in it, got it ready. And he was in that race as well. But he didn't have any engine, had a 235. We didn't have the money to fix the engine. So he was just riding around in the back. So all of the guys out there running the track, I got out, and I was sitting over there in the grass, and
you're not hurt.
Not hurt. Luckily, everything in the car flew out, but I wasn't hurt. Right. But anyway, they ran back there and said, Mr. Orton, Richard turned over about 4 or 5 times up there, but he's sitting in the grass. He's okay. And Daddy said, okay, I'll keep racing. So he finished up the race there. Of course, he didn't get very far up at all, but he was out there just cruising. And
now, how long did his career last?
Well, he was 49, Ken, when we started. I got him going in, but he was already 49 years old, and he got to where we did build a 55 Chevrolet. They changed over from the hobby cars to the, what they call them, Cadets.
Right.
And we went down to Graysville out there and bought two 55 Chevrolets. Well, we fixed one. And
now, are you done? So you're done with the 30, the Ford?
Well, no, not really.
You fixed the one that you flipped down the backstretch?
Yeah, it was gone. Okay. That car, trying to keep it away from my mama, she finds out about it. There's no way to get into Wylam, Alabama without going over a railroad track back then.
Right.
I ran over the railroad track. I got the thing on the trailer and ran over the railroad track. It fell off.
Oh.
The body fell slap off, and I just left it down there.
Did you really?
I went home. I said, God, I hope she ain't seen this.
It probably looked better without the body on it anyway, didn't it?
Yeah. But anyway, I pulled in, and I as I got out of the car, she come out there, what the hell happened? I said, I wrecked. And I said, but got bad news is I wrecked. The good news is Bobby Rutherford told me he had a 48 Ford Coupe down there. Just come down there and get it.
And what did she say to that?
I don't know about that. We're going to talk about it. And I said, why we want to talk about it? We're not hurt. We're fixed.
Yeah.
Mama.
Let's talk about your mama. What was her first name again?
Nellie.
Okay.
Nellie Agnes.
Okay. And she was a tall lady like yourself.
Yeah, she was a tall lady. I guess that's what happened to me.
Yeah, that's right. But now your mom was completely 100%, 120% full of personality.
Oh, gosh. Yeah. She worked for, when Midfield had J.C. Penney's.
Yeah.
She worked at Goldstein and Cohen in Inslee for a long time, and that kind of folded up. And she went down when the Midfield, what was the name of that shopping center down there?
Westlake Mall?
Yeah, Westlake. J.C. Penney.
Yeah.
She worked down there. So she added to the racing funds every once in a while.
That's good. Well, you had a really fierce competitor in Brother Lee Hurley.
Oh, my goodness gracious. Yeah. And, Dad and I, though, to continue on with the story.
Well, we didn't talk about your mom 1 second. We're going, maybe this is the right point, but anyway, I want to bring it in, whether it is or isn't. But your mom is your son. I got an opportunity to talk to him a while ago a little bit, and he was telling me about your mom and her personality.
Goodness gracious.
Your parents owned like 3 or 4 lots there in Wylam, and he had a little motorcycle, and he's out every time he's over there riding his motorcycle, and I think he'd spent the night, and so the 7 o'clock the next morning, he's firing this thing up. And, and the lady next door kindly tells him, I really wish you wouldn't ride this close to my house this early in the morning. He said it wasn't but a minute. He goes back and tells your mom, she's down there knocking on the door and telling on the lady, don't say nothing to him, and I'm going to tell him to ride about as close to your house as he can all day long. But anyway, so one night you're with Lee and y'all are big competitors, and she has some kind of souvenir thing she wants to get signed by Mr. Hurley.
Yeah. Well, she was she happened to be at the races that night. She's come to most of them, but she would hear, she said, well, Richard runs second again. And I'd go over there, and she said, what's wrong with you, boy? You got to run first. I said, well, we're trying to get there, Mama. So she comes over there, and Lee's standing out there. He won the race, and I run second. So she walks up to Lee, and Lee's all smiles, happy. She said, Mr. Hurley, sign this for me, please. He said, gladly.
Uh-huh.
He signed that thing.
It was a cup, was that right? Or something?
I think it was some kind of cup.
Yeah.
And he signed that thing. He signed it, handed it to her with a big smile. She threw it on the ground and smashed it.
Right in front of it.
Right in front of it. I don't believe he'll ever forget that.
No, I don't think so either. He remembered it pretty well the other day. But you had a great mom, and it's fierce, supportive of you and your family and stuff like that. But it's neat to hear.
Oh yeah.
Her passion for her family.
She's gonna take care of her boys, and she lived to be 89. And and stayed right over there in Wylam. I mean, she'd be over there in her chair. I'd go over there when my dad had passed away, and she'd be sound asleep. Yeah, anybody could have walked in there and just bumped her on the head.
All right. So anyway, we're going back to the racing. You got the 48.
Okay. All right. We got the Fords, and I got the 48 Ford, and we only run it put the parts off the old 3C on there, and we only run it a little bit. And then NASCAR changed the rules, and they did away with all those cars, just like they did the modified specials, and we went to the cadet class. Well, we went and got 255 Chevrolets and hauled them out. And
now you're going to build both these cars simultaneously, or you just got one
out there under the oak tree? We'd haul them out, and Daddy would bend bars and put in them.
So y'all were building them both at the same time.
At the same time. Well, we got one of them going quicker.
Sure, I understand, but yeah.
But one of them had a little 265 motor in it, and I run it down there, and it third, fourth place car down at midfield. And then Daddy, I don't know where he come up with it, but he come up with some extra money. We built the other 55, and he built the 302, which was the biggest motor you could put in there.
Right.
And that car ran pretty good. We won a bunch of features with it. And
primarily at midfield, or where else?
We ran at Huntsville, Birmingham, and midfield.
Okay, and had victories everywhere?
Had victories everywhere.
Okay.
Had victories everywhere. And then the Vietnam conflict came about. And I was leading the points in 1966 at Birmingham. And
so, what are you doing for work at this time yourself? Are you
just working? I was working down at Nashville Bridge in Bessemer.
Okay.
In the plant down there.
Okay.
And I got a phone call from a fellow racer, Joe Antonora. Some of you maybe remember the Antonora.
Oh, yeah, very well.
There was three brothers. Every one of them raced, and I guess I drove all three of them's cars. But
wow.
Joe was my boss. He was the head of the maintenance shop.
But you're at Nashville Bridge then?
No, Joe called me, and I was at Nashville Bridge, and he said, "We got a problem, Richard." I said, "What's that?" He said, "I got an opening down here, federal job opening with Federal Civil Service, and we got to be in Montgomery tomorrow to do the paperwork." I said, "Joe, you ain't got no problem." I said, "We'll be there."
Yeah.
So I got that job, and it was a military job, but one of the prerequisites to that military job was you had to belong to the reserve, the National Guard. Okay. The National Guard. And I'm proud to say that I served 34 years in the National Guard.
Well, thank you for your service. It's just to be commendable, and thank you for doing that.
Well, it's hard to race and do the military side.
I understand, yeah.
But in 66, I was leading the points, and Fort Benning calls. I will never like a Detroit engine for listening to them in the bus when they pulled us up there at Fort Benning, on Sand Hill.
Yeah, so you left from Wylam, Alabama?
Yes, up to Fort Benning.
Okay.
And a bunch of big sergeants. And we got through basic training, and then they sent me to Aberdeen Proving Grounds because I was in the track vehicle type tank stuff. So I had to go up there. Now, I was about a week longer than most of the guys that went to different things. You know, some of them was in supply, some of them was in a lot of different things.
Right.
But it was a bunch of guys from Wylam, Inslee. When the Vietnam deal come up, you know, I wanted to race. That was my whole thing. And I went down, and Mr. Cliff Odom, I don't even remember Odom Realty from Pleasant Grove.
I think I do. Yes.
Well, he was running the maintenance of the Wylam Armory at that time. He's the one that got me in.
Wow. Okay.
He was a warrant officer.
Okay.
I think he recently passed away. But anyway, got that done, and went and did the basic and advanced, and it was time for the Daytona 500. So I get home, and it's about time to get in the car and go down there. So I did that, went down there, come back, and started driving for Bobby Ray Jones. Many of you know Bobby Ray is very successful in racing. And when I started driving for him.
Now, what year is this? This is
67.
67. Okay.
Bobby Ray didn't know what a radiator cap was.
Okay. Right. Exactly. Yeah. He's in the bar business and worked at U.S. Steel.
He had a couple of bars, yes.
Yeah.
And one at Legion Field called the Goalpost. Many people remember
That's right.
that.
Yeah. So,
But he become very, very good
yes.
in fabrication and everything. So I drove for Bobby Ray.
And he's got at this time, he's got a really good guy working with him, a good friend of his, Al Hall.
Al Hall, yes. Al Hall. He worked at a lot of Chevrolet places. And he lived right there by Bobby Ray. And matter of fact, Bobby Ray's garage and then Al's house and Bobby Ray's house right there. Yeah. And we'd be out there beating and banging on that race car and look around and Bobby Ray's gone and he's gone to work.
Yeah.
So we're still out there beating and banging, but that's what you had to do to race. And then it wasn't long.
This is what kind of car is this?
It's a 55 Chevrolet.
This is a 55 Chevrolet. And what number 2 is on it?
It was number 2.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. Number 2 is what I mostly run. I run number 1 a bunch too.
Okay.
But, and then along come a young fella who worked for Bobby Ray, bought a lot of parts from Charles Finley Auto Parts.
Yep.
And Larry McReynolds was working for Charles Finley. And he said, Richard, y'all need some help? I said, I always need some help, Larry. So he came out and helped us with that car. So it was a great year.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So I had a lot of success with that.
Oh, yeah. We won, despite everything that Hurley did at the start of the year, we come on strong, the middle on out, and we won the championship, won the state championship. And that's one thing that in my 20-year career, with my dad and we won about 5 championships just on the tracks out here that was not NASCAR. And then when I started driving cars on the NASCAR thing up there, we won 5 there. So I won 10 during a 20-year period. So I'm very proud of that.
Absolutely. You should be. And how many years did you get to drive for Bobby Ray?
I drove for Bobby Ray in 67. Got a nasty letter from NASCAR. Said, boy, you done won too many races. We're moving you up to the modifieds.
Okay.
So we built a 68 56 model Chevrolet. And that thing, they used to have the cars prior to this season. They would have them down at Long Lewis in the showroom on the front. People that had their cars all prettied up and ready would bring them down there, and people would come around with sign autographs and everything. It was a fun little night.
So it wasn't Ford only. It was anybody that had a race car and was ready.
Yeah. You
were welcome to the Ford store. And
yeah, we had Chevrolets in there.
Okay.
Red had his big Ford in there. Yeah. But we had all our stuff in there. Okay. Mr. Burrell was great for racing.
He was very, very good for racing. Yeah. Done a lot for him. And then Roy Buckner also.
Yes.
Was there. And
Roy Buckner would take them motors out of them Corvettes and put them in them modified specials for Bobby. Goodness gracious. But those guys, they helped racing so much back in the day. And I was right on the borderline of the modified specials going out, and I just drooled over them. I loved them. But they were not conducive to wrecking. I mean, you could get hurt.
Yeah, no doubt about that.
They were not. But I just
they set high. It seemed like they set high and stuff, and it
just wasn't much to them.
Yeah, that's true too.
Wasn't much to them. Yeah. I still remember today, Mr. Morgan down here, Mr. Charlie Morgan had the tire store. He had that number 47 with that Indian on the back.
Okay, a
whole Indian chief.
Really?
You probably don't remember.
I don't.
But it was an Indian chief mounted on the back of that thing.
Wow.
On the back panel, it was a sedan. Yeah. I always remember that one.
Wow. How about that?
I always remember that.
Yeah.
One. But those cars, when you see that picture, like when we went to Vulcan and had that thing here a few years ago over at Vulcan, they had the picture and they had Red's sedan and Bobby's coupe and Donnie's sedan lined up there. 3. They're very, very pretty.
Oh yeah. Very much
very
so.
pretty.
Yeah, exactly.
Very, very pretty. I was sure glad to see at Talladega that Red and them.
It was very nice honor that they gave him the chance to do that.
Yes,
very much so.
Yes, that was good. Was you up there? Did you see?
No, I was there Saturday, but I didn't go back Sunday.
Go back Sunday.
So you're sitting here and you're racing for Bobby Ray, and y'all running really good in this 55.
Yes. Well, we won everything in the 55 in the cadets, and it got moved up.
The Chevelle.
Well, we built a 56. That was what they call late model modified back then. And we built one, and the first night at Montgomery, I was running around, and everybody said, "You're running really good, Richard." I said, "Well, I worry about this." And I started about third in the feature, and I got the lead. And about 3 laps, I heard something coming, and Red went by me so fast, I thought he sucked the paint off the side of the car. I mean, he was flying. And then the next lap around, Sternenberg comes by.
Wow.
So I took my hand and I slapped my helmet about 3 times, and I said, "Buddy, we're gonna have to tighten up. This is not gonna be easy." But I kept
New world for you, was it?
Yeah, new world. And I kept my composure, and I finished third. And we ran some more all year long. We ran pretty good. We had a pretty bad wreck at Birmingham. All of us piled up down there and won. And I remember Bobby's 55 Chevrolet come over the top of me, and it knocked my helmet shield off.
Really?
Yeah, the rear tires come across the windshield.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, we just all wadded up down there. Somebody run out of talent, but it was
This is 1968.
68.
Okay.
68.
So you have a decent year.
We had
Learned a lot.
Yeah, learned a lot. Had a decent year, and I had met my future wife.
Tell me how you met her.
I had a friend that hung around over there with all of them at Sunnyside and up at the place right up there by the speed shop.
Yeah.
And he said, I'm gonna introduce you to this girl. And he said, "Now, I'm in my wild stage of life." And he said, "As soon as I get calmed down, I'm gonna come back and get her."
Oh, was that right?
So he made a fatal mistake.
Did he?
Yeah, he let me go. So I went out with her, and I said, "Well, this looks like this is gonna be the one."
And what's her name then?
Her name was Darlene Haygood.
Haygood, Darlene Haygood. Okay.
Yeah, her dad lived out towards Forestdale, and she lived in West End, not far from the hospital.
Yeah. Okay. So you and Darlene start dating, and
yeah, I don't remember. Something broke on the race car or something, and I said, "Well, I'll just go out." And then he said, I know how to fix you up right here. So that's how that all began, and that worked out well for 35 years.
now, how long before you got married after you started dating?
Well, it was a while, because I didn't get married until 69. It was a year and a little over a half.
Okay.
Because my Darlene's stepdad, he was from Pennsylvania, and he wanted to have a big to-do, and they did have a big to-do up at the Wylam Church up there. So we raced and did all that kind of stuff, and we always liked the water, so we had a place down at the Warrior River like you, and then we wound up at Smith Lake, so where I live now. But it was a while, and during that time, Bobby Ray, I was trying to think, in 68, we ran that car, I think, to the end of the year, and then I didn't have anything going, and Jerry Lawley started driving for Bobby Ray, and we started running back down at Dixie Speedway again.
Just you and your dad or something?
Yeah.
Okay.
Daddy had bought a car. If you remember, Bobby Allison used to come home, and Jimmy Morris would keep him a car. If he run the firecracker race, he'd fly home and run at BIR and things like that. So they ran that 57 Chevrolet, and they put it on blocks down there, and I got to be inquisitive about it. I said, "What are you going to do with that old car?" And they said, "I don't know." So, "You need it?" And I said, "Well,"
and then Jimmy's working on these cars where? Where are you going by and seeing this car at? Where do you see this car at?
I knew the car all the time.
But at Jimmy's house, is that where they worked?
Jimmy Morris lived right down here off of Brookline.
That's correct, yeah.
Where Bobby lived to start with, and Jimmy lived down there.
That's right, okay. Those cars there.
So they worked on it, I don't know, down at Bobby's place and around different places. But they won a lot of races with that car. I think that car was on the trailer when they had the wreck.
Yeah, and if anybody don't know, Jimmy Morris was, again, a great car builder, and had Bobby and Donnie, and I don't know, a bunch of them drive for him at different times, and was going to Montgomery one night.
Raining like crazy. Has
an accident, ruptures his spleen or something, I think.
It hit a tree. It hit a tree right in the tongue area. It was like wrapped around the tree.
Yeah.
And we all were at the hospital, and they told us he was fine. He was bleeding internally. An hour and a half later, we lost him.
Wow. Yeah.
So it was, it was one of those. I think it was a July the 4th.
Was it? Okay. Yeah.
I think it was.
Yeah. And then I'm good friends with it. Jimmy's son, James, was in the towing business. And James sponsored some of the Anthony Oil cars. Stuff. And
you want me to tell you a story, James' story?
Yeah, tell me a James story.
Okay. Well, my son, we got into legacy cars in the 90s.
Yeah.
95. James had a car. He bought a car that had won a lot of races. J.R. Norris had won a lot of races in it, and he was going to learn how to drive it.
Mm-hmm.
We had carried all the cars to Talladega and rode them around the big track behind the cars for the 500. And James said, well, you going to Montgomery Saturday night? I said, well, Richie's going to be late. I said, I'm going to go down there and practice and everything. Well, he come over, and he said, Richard, you going out? I said, yeah, I'm going to go out and run this thing a while. He said, you care if I follow you? And I wasn't thinking. I should have run just a pace where he could have learned. But I went flying around there 3 or 4 laps, and I come back, and he was sitting over there off of 2. And I mean, there wasn't no front end on the thing.
Oh, yeah.
I said, what happened? He said, I don't know. So I guess he sold that car, didn't he?
He drove it for a while, yeah. And then had some fun.
He's got a record Bessemer now.
No, he's retired from that. Yeah, he's doing it at the beach. Yeah, but he's doing good.
He's at the beach.
He's at the beach, living a good life. Talked to him the other day, but yeah, great family. Matter of fact, they had the Jimmy Morris Memorial Race for many years, and Jimmy's daughter Kathy was been part of that, and him and James were all there giving awards away and things of that nature. So.
Well, and he had a brother named Ralph who did a lot of racing too.
Yeah, Ralph Morris did. Yeah, that's correct. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
when I first started driving some other people's cars, we still had that 57 Chevrolet. We had been winning all the races at Hurley and at Dixie Speedway, and they'd give out those little old stickers. And Daddy and Ralph was good friends, so we had to start writing Richard and Ralph on there.
Yeah.
Keep up with who won what. But there was a lot of stickers on that car. And Ralph did a great job for us too.
Yeah. So you ended up buying this 55 from Bobby or from James, or 57 from James, Jimmy.
And we ran that in 69, 70 range, 71. I even took that car. That car, it was a sportsman car, a late model modified when they had it. And we made it into a midfield late model.
Okay.
And won a lot of races with it down there, put the small tires and a little rear end in it and everything. But the car, we had all the geometry and everything on the front end, and it just drove perfectly.
Yeah.
And we'd run that car. And then we changed that car back over to a sportsman car.
Okay.
And I ran it, and we won some heat races and stuff with it at Huntsville. It was about a second or third place car. We run it at Huntsville, Montgomery.
Yeah.
And then in 70.
Let's go the break, the when you stopped driving for Bobby Ray, what brought that on? What kind of emotions or feelings was involved with that? Or do you remember anything much about that?
Married life.
Okay.
You start off and you're trying to, like I was trying to get on with the military thing and all that. And it was, I got married in 69, and we were doing all that. And it, at the end of the 68 season, after that, I don't remember exactly, what happened, but we had that car. And we put all our efforts into that car, and we won 2 or 3 championships down at midfield and around a lot of races out at Sayre. But we ran that. Well, we didn't have a lot of money. That was one thing that we didn't.
But the reason, just the married life and the time you were spending away with Bobby Ray was just more than your family could bear at the time.
Well, that's true, and too, I was trying to get situated. I had to take care of a wife. I had to get a house. I had to do a lot of things, and I was, when I was working down at the bridge plant, I was lucky if I could get a McDonald's on Friday. When I got on down there, you had all the benefits, it had just changed over from state operation to federal.
Wow.
Did that in '69.
Telling me the pay back then was how much an hour?
$2 and something when I started.
Okay.
I know. J.D. Holt. Many of you know J.D. Holt.
Another great car builder.
Yes. And that he lived right down here on Daffodil Avenue. And I met him. He was working down there at the shop, him and one more fella. And I went in and worked with him, met him then. He was real good friends with Jimmy Watson, who was a race car driver as well. But met JD and his family and his boys and started rapport with them. And I had them as friends. I had them as in the military with me, and I worked with them. So
wow. Yeah.
when they passed away, it really hurt me.
Yeah, that's a lot of good friends.
But JD helped anybody, anytime. He'd come around and he'd sit around and he'd look and he'd be talking to Alton Jones and he'd be asking him about his car. He'd be talking to Robert Wells. He would talk to you. He'd talk to anybody, you know, and he'd look, he said, well, maybe you ought to try a little more right rear spring or, you know, and he just knew. He learned. He had a brilliant mind. He's quiet.
Yeah, correct. Yeah,
quiet. But I've seen him get mad. I've seen a couple of people rub on us a little bit. He said, "Why you knock him out?"
Yeah, right.
I've seen him get mad, but it relatively quiet fellow.
Yeah, really. But again, Curtis Lacey drove for him.
Oh yes, and
helped Curtis.
Everybody won.
Everybody, I think that's right. Yeah,
everybody won. Jimmy Watson and Darrell Brown tied for the cadet championship in 1970. They sold that car to Curtis Lacey, and he was outrunning everybody all over the place. And Hurley and them, Terry Wesley, they protested him, tore it down. And Curtis looked in there and he said, "This thing's got flat top pistons in it, JD." He said, "Are you winning races or not?"
Yeah, wow.
Wouldn't even let Curtis put all that good stuff in there.
Really,
I mean, he had that thing tuned up to where it would roll.
Amazing talent. Yeah,
yes.
No doubt about it.
Yes, he was. And then I was all the way through the career with him, and people used to give us a hard time. Well, you know how we done all this racing with our hands?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, you're describing
we drinking coffee, and they say, "What in the heck are you doing?" I mean, JD's sitting over there talking about all this stuff. But that was a friend. He's friend's friend. I mean, he was a good.
You know, it's really cool when you not only, like you said, you spend time at work with somebody, but then you get to race with them and then have personal relationships, and those are relationships that are golden.
You know, they're golden, and you just, you know, my wife, when I never will forget it, I had bought me, I had a 67 442 in 67, nice 4-speed car. I wish I had it today, and I traded it in. I bought a Mercury Cyclone like Kel Yarborough had.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, and I had that thing. And my wife had drove it one day, and she pulled it up in front of the house, and somebody hit it. Mm. Oh, my goodness. She thought I was going to kill her. Yeah. But those relationships you have are, like you said, they're golden. And when, you know, we lost JD, and then his daughter, Dana, ooh, she would fight you over. I mean, she was every race, every place. She was there.
Yeah,
she
loved
was
it.
There.
She loved it. Yeah.
Yes, goodness gracious. And well, the boys, when they grew up, I bought them their first go-kart. We raced that thing, and Joey and Jimmy. Some of y'all may know them.
Yeah, they were racing when I was racing.
Yeah.
Good guys.
Yeah.
So you're in 1972 or 3.
1972, we had changed that 57 Chevrolet over to a late model.
Okay.
Of course, it was 5th, 6th, 7th place car.
And you're racing it where?
I was racing everywhere. Birmingham, Huntsville, Montgomery, wherever we had the money to go.
Yep.
And the Newsom guys down here.
Larry Newsom and Bob Newsom.
They had built, they were pretty good fabricators as well, and they had built a 1968 Pontiac GTO. And they didn't have any connections to get an engine or anything, and you couldn't put a Chevrolet in there. Mm-hmm. And they come up one day, and they down at Dixie Speedway, and they say, "Richard, you interested in that GTO?" And all I could envision was getting an engine and putting it and carrying it to Daytona. I mean, it was a nice car, nice cage, everything.
It was built safe enough and strong enough to go to Daytona and places like
run it in a sportsman race.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
So I traded him my 57 Chevrolet for that car, and it stayed in the backyard, and we painted it up and everything. And I had a couple of connections through some of the Winston Cup guys trying to find a Pontiac motor. Never materialized.
Okay.
So 73 come along, and Earl Spiegel approached me one day, and he said, what are you going to do with the Pontiac? I said, well, I guess I'm going to just scrap it. I said, I can't find nothing to race it with. He said, I'll trade you my late model sportsman Chevelle for it. Well, he had at least it was all together.
Right,
Engine,
ready to race.
Transmission, everything ready to race. So I got it, and we run it a couple times. It was a 5th, 6th place car. We ran it, and then a guy approached me down at Dixie Speedway. His name was Charles Kent. He's from down Shelby County. He said, Richard, I got a man who wants to start racing.
This is a 73?
It's a 73.
Yeah. Okay.
And the latter part of 73.
Okay.
So.
And Charles Kent was just a fan at the races?
No, he had a car.
Oh, he had a car.
He raced.
Okay.
He raced. He had a little Ford Fairlane.
Okay.
He raced. I don't know why in the world he picked me, but
yeah.
Anyway, he said, the man's name is Von Arthur. He said, I'm going to set up a little deal where you meet him over at the motel over there. I think his kinfolks owned it over in Hoover. Or what is that down
Vestavia.
Vestavia. Okay, over at Vestavia. So I went over there one morning when he had coffee, and just a nice petite little guy. I had him a beer and a little bit. And he said, Richard, I want to race. He said, you'll sell me that car? And me and Daddy talked about it. And I said, we might as well sell it, Daddy. I said, we ain't got any money to make it any better. So they bought my little car, my little Chevelle.
Do you strike this deal sitting at the table?
Sitting at the table. I told him, I said, Vaughn, I'm just trying to make, see if I can make it in racing. And I said, I won't charge you nothing to drive it. I said, I'll drive.
Was that your statement, or was that his?
It was my statement. He didn't say that. I'll probably could have told.
Yeah. And Von Arthur was of money. He had.
He had some money.
Yeah, he had some money and a big farm and some other things.
A big chicken farm and but anyway, down in
Columbiana.
That's right. Mm-hmm. And so he buys that car. He sends it to Montgomery. Somebody down there just completely redid the one that I had. Okay. And Little Mater drove it a little bit. He won some races with it too.
Now, Little Mater drives it before you get in it?
No, he had bought the car from Roundman. We bought a new car from Roundman.
Right.
And I was driving it. Well, we got the other car back.
Okay.
And we let little Dave drive it.
So y'all have both the cars out there.
Yeah.
Are they painted alike? Look alike?
2 and 02. Yeah.
2 and 02. Okay. Yeah. I didn't know.
You didn't know that?
I didn't know Dave drove that. No.
Yeah. Matter of fact, the last race of the year, I was leading the points. Little Mater was leading the race. I knew I could catch him, but I wouldn't do it because we wanted to win the championship.
Sure, I got you.
But he won a couple races, and he won several races. They would go to Pensacola on some of the nights when I was military. And, and he won a bunch of races down there.
Okay. So this is the opportunity of your life, looking back. There's no doubt.
This was it. The season was ending. We had won 10 or 12 races at Birmingham.
Let's go back. I mean, so when you're sitting there and you're striking this deal, and he's telling you he's bought your car, and he tells you also at that time that he's bought a car. Has he already struck the deal with Roundman to buy the other car?
Yeah, he had already struck the deal with Roundman.
So he's telling you his plans. That he said, I done bought a car from Roundman.
Two cars he's going to have. He's going to fix my old one that he bought for me, and he was going to, he bought a tow truck and everything.
Okay, wow.
And then he sent it to Montgomery, like I said, to get it updated.
Right.
And then Roundman had a new car in production. It was almost finished.
Okay.
So he goes down there
and he's buying Hurley motors.
Bought a motor from Hurley.
So, sitting at this table that this man is promising you the moon.
Yes. And that's what I wanted. I wanted to see if I could make it.
I understand. But I mean, most people never get that opportunity for somebody to to call you up on the telephone and tell you to meet me at a restaurant, and this guy promises you everything could ever hope for in a race team.
And everything he talked about his wife.
Yeah,
Jean. She raised Schnauzer dogs.
Mm-hmm.
And Jean was all into it too. All the family, everybody in the family is amazing. Everybody just come out of the woods. And the grandpa, Kip, oh Lord, don't mess with him. He was a character as well.
And so they have means, they have money,
Whole family,
and they're thrilled to be in automobile racing.
That's right.
And they've bought the best stuff that they can buy, and they've hired King Richard to drive this.
Yes, they made me that.
Yeah. And so yeah. All right. So you leave there that morning, going home to tell you. I guess you went there by yourself, right?
Uh-huh.
So you're driving home, and you're going to tell your parents and your dad, we done. Our ships come in.
Ships come in. Yes,
okay.
That's right.
So when you're telling your dad this, and your brand new car, brand new motor, brand new tow deal, everything, what does your dad say?
Can you handle it?
Oh, okay. All right.
I said,
it's almost unbelievable, but
it's unbelievable. But there you are. You've won a lot of races in the lower divisions. You have a competitor who introduces you to this family.
That's right.
That's the family.
That's right.
And you get this car and you go out there on practice day. You got beautiful orange uniforms Gene had fixed up. You got everything in the world.
So, I mean, y'all are showing up at the racetrack and making a statement. I mean,
I guess we did.
This is the car, people, in this picture right up front here. This thing is orange, and it's detailed to the max.
Beautiful.
I mean, it's probably the most beautiful car that's been to the racetrack in a long time. Yeah. So, all right. And you're all dressed and you're all ready. You get this thing primed and fired up, and it's a week before opening season, right?
That's right. The practice day.
Okay. And who's there helping you?
Well, Vaughn had a son, and he had a friend that was there.
Yep.
That's how we started out.
And Lee's taking this car.
Lee took the car. He finished up some stuff on the radiator and everything. He put the motor in it and all. I think it even surprised Lee that it run like it did.
Right.
And we go out there, and I made a few laps, and I thought, man, I died and went to heaven.
Yeah.
And I come in. I didn't know. I wasn't clocking them. I didn't know where the boys even knew how to clock them. So I see Red over there. He's punching buttons.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, come here, buddy. So I walked over there, and he says, you know how fast the car's running? I said, I ain't got no idea. I just riding around.
Mm-hmm.
He said, it's pretty damn fast. and I back the next week, and it was Friday Hassler Memorial. I'm proud of having that too. Friday Hassler Memorial.
This is the opening day at Birmingham International Raceway of 1974.
That picture.
That's okay.
And
they're going to run 3 features that day.
3 features that day.
Okay, and they're 25 lap features.
25 lap features.
All right. Now, where do you start?
I started about 5th or 6th in the first one, and Johnny Day started on the pole, and he jumped out there and was leading. And Vaughn had told me, he said, now this car is pretty, but he said, I want it to have some chevrons on it.
Really?
So
thinking about Vaughn, this guy is a, for lack of better words, maybe a man's man, a businessman. I mean, he knows how to conduct himself. He knows what it takes. I mean, he's a strong personality.
Oh, yeah.
Knows how to conduct himself and expects wherever he goes and whatever he does to succeed.
I thought to myself, I said, now, if I get out here and fool around, run 5th or 6th, I said, they'll just tell me that I can't drive it anymore. So I surprised myself. We went to the front. We got up to Johnny Day, and I just eased.
How many laps did it take you to get to the front? I mean, you're moving pretty quick.
3.
Yeah.
3? Yeah. So on the second lap, I was already up beside Johnny, and I said, well, he said he wanted some chevrons on here. So I got a little close, and the tire was on the side. This car was beautiful. And And I come back and he was clapping. He said, "You did it! You did it!" And we won the race.
So y'all go to the front straightaway?
Yeah.
Get your pictures made.
Oh yeah.
Okay. So he's coming. I mean, he's in the pits. He sees it, and so the whole family's headed to the front straightaway.
They're all dressed up in their uniform.
First day out.
First day out.
First race.
First race.
And you're in victory lane.
First race of my life.
Oh my gosh.
And we won the race. Johnny Garrison comes down there. He's got the flag. I still got the big Friday Hassler Memorial Trophy at home.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And oh man, that was a big thing. We got back to pits, everybody jumping up and down. And
where are you parked? I got to know where you parked on pit road.
Where I park on pit road, you know where the first 2 or 3 cars were, and in the walkway.
Yeah.
We were usually on
the left side.
Yeah, right in that area.
Okay. All right.
Stayed most of the time.
All right. So you come back, and what do you do to prep the car for the second race?
They don't know what to do. They wouldn't know. That was the big thing. They put gas in it.
Okay. All right.
Rubbed on the paint a little bit.
Change no tires.
And then change that. Well, now that's one thing Vaughn did. He would buy tires, and when he would go to the racetrack, I'd rascals liable to buy everyone on the truck.
Really?
And everybody would get mad.
Yeah.
And Paddlefoot and all of them come over there and say, "I won't buy them tires, come off that car." And they would be fighting for them, and we'd change them all.
So you think, remember back, you replaced the tires after the first race, you think?
I think I did.
Okay.
I think they were Goodyear 8s and 9s. They lasted a long time.
But it didn't matter.
Yeah.
We want a fresh set on.
He said, put some on.
All right.
Somebody had already put that in his mind.
Okay.
Tires a big deal.
That's right.
So they did. The car was fine. Went out there.
Where you starting the second race?
I don't remember, but I started on the back, but I just went through there like it wasn't nothing. Went to the front, and just stretched. I slowed up a little bit because I didn't want to stretch it out too much.
Yeah, you don't want to get beat up and tag too bad.
That's right. And we went back, celebrated.
So you're back on victory lane again.
Back on victory lane again.
Everybody's getting a picture made again.
And everybody said, "Okay, Richard, nobody's ever done it. Can we win 3 in a row?" And I said, "I don't see why we can't."
Yeah, right.
So we started the race again. I get up to third. Paddlefoot and another car get together, and I just barely bumped them. And it knocked a little hole in the oil pan, and it was dripping. And Hurley looked at it. He says, "Put it on a trailer."
Oh.
So that eliminated the 3 feature wins. But
yeah.
I'm telling you that.
Now, how high are you and Mama and Daddy on the way home?
Oh, goodness gracious.
And Darlene, yeah.
Yeah. Darlene was one, she would sit in the pits. She'd be next to somebody, and she'd be beating them. She'd be hitting on them. And they always said, "Don't sit close to her, and she'll beat you to death." And
so you are on a high. I mean,
it was on a big high. That was,
because again, not only were you promised all this, it was delivered to you that day.
Yeah, it was delivered to me, and I was able to make it happen.
That's right, no doubt. Yes.
And we went on, and the main problem we had was we didn't have any qualified help. Yep. Later on in '74, you remember Dave Basilnook?
I do. I know that.
He came down and went to work for us.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. He came down and went to work for us, and he built engines and stuff, and he was a great help.
Yeah, and you had some other help at the times too, with the Chester and them. Some at the racetrack,
we could get them
when you could get them. They were in high demand.
Yeah, high demand. They could. And Chester and them. It was March, Nashville's first race. It was a 200-lap race, and I had.
How do y'all get Chester and his group to go with y'all? Do you have any? You remember how that took place?
Chester's been always pretty close with me. I drove his cadet car some, and all that bunch.
And he knows you need help.
Yeah, he come over and he said, "Richard, who's going to change tires and stuff at Nashville?" I said, "Chester, that's yet to be determined." I said, "Why don't you go talk to Vaughn and see if you can't do it?" I wanted him to do it.
Sure.
Well, he did. He talked to Vaughn, and they become pretty close too. And Vaughn said, "Okay." He said, "You get us whatever you think we need."
Whatever.
So we come up with Marvin Barber.
Yeah.
Lee Hurley, Chester Honeycutt.
Wow.
I had about
big swingers.
Big swingers. Yeah. I had all them with me, and plus Vaughn's son and his friend, Gopher, and we went up there, and
Now, what is Vaughn's son's name? You remember? Is it Vaughn Jr.? Is it
Vaughn
Little
Jr.,
Vaughn.
yeah.
So he's into this racing. He's trying to learn. He's giving a pretty good effort.
He's trying to learn, and he first thing he did was after the 74 season, he took the 02 car, and it didn't last long.
Oh, he drove it?
Oh, yeah. He drove it as a cadet or whatever they called him back then. And he wiped it out pretty quickly.
Okay.
And then when things, as the story goes on, I'll
well, let's go back to Nashville because we know what happens at Nashville. Let's tell this Nashville story.
Yeah.
So you got all these guys going with you, and you're the best race car that money can buy.
Most confidence in it you could have.
All right, and you show up at Nashville.
Right.
Ever been there?
Never been on the racetrack at all.
Okay. Now Birmingham's fast
and unique.
Nashville's really fast.
Really fast
and unique. Because it's a different. You're driving further in and picking throttle up so much earlier than you.
So much.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And you go up there and you know you watch them.
Yeah.
Watch them. And I just blasted off down in there and I felt it bottom out. And Hurley come over there when I went back in. I said, Lee, oh, maybe you have to raise this thing up. So he did. He raised it up. I went back out there, and man, you could just drive that thing.
Wow.
Too, and it wasn't the fastest thing there by no means. Waldrop was there driving that Harper Ford. It was a Cougar.
Yep.
Cougar. And he qualified about a tenth faster than us. And they had another guy there named Ray Hendrick, who was from Virginia, who won a lot of races up there. He was an older fella, but boy, he drove hard and
had a nice little logo on the side of his car. With a little wing.
Flame.
Yeah, that's right. Wing thing or what? Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
I remember it had a wood floorboard in it.
Is that right?
It was lightweight.
Right.
Yeah. But in a 200 lap race, everybody was there. Bobby was there. Red was there.
Ingram, Gantz,
Buddy Baker, all of them. Dave Mark. And I got to looking back the other day and it was a lot of talent.
List.
Yes, there was.
Okay. So where's this little Chevelle qualify?
Qualified sixth, I think.
Okay. All right. And again, 200 lap race.
200 lap race.
We get the rag, throw the green.
I had never. He throwed the green. Walter jumped out there, and Hendrick was behind him, and I think I wiggled my way up to third, and I was just. Car was so good, I would just drive it in there. We had no radios in, but you couldn't have wiped a smile off my face, I don't think.
Right.
But I just sit there, and I stayed right there on them. And later on in the race, as it wound down, Waldrop had trouble and
mechanical failure or something. You think
mechanical failure? Okay. I don't remember exactly what it was, and it got down to 70 something laps to go. And my wife had missed a lap on the scoring.
Okay.
And the old boy, you used to be flip cards.
Yeah.
So you run a 2069 or 2070. You had to.
Yeah.
And she was a nervous wreck. And he come up there and he said, 2, you're leading. And she just went to shaking.
Really? Wow.
But they got that straightened out. And we were leading the race. And the Hendrick guy, he was running pretty good. He would stay right there with me, but he was diving in the corner, and they kept telling me, they said, he's trying, he's going to knock you out. And so I just run as hard as I could, and I kept some distance there. But Bobby and him had raced a lot.
Bobby Allison
had raced a lot over the years. And Bobby, Hendrick ran down in the corner over there, and Bobby slammed on his brakes.
Held him up.
He smashed into Bobby, and then fenders just flared out. And Bobby said his foot come off the accelerator. I guess that's what happened. I don't know.
That's right.
But anyway, it was about 5 or 6 laps to go there. I had led it all the way, and we had a caution, and they was coming from the pits trying to tell me. He said, he's going to dive, Bobby. And so I ran.
So you got, like I said, you 5 laps to go or something?
Yeah, and okay. I ran 5 hard laps there and won the race. And they pulled a car into a chain link fence area. Mm-hmm. and my wife couldn't get in. She was up there trying to get the scoring straight, scared to death. And Walter's wife was still up there. She said, Darlene, don't worry about it. It's straight. And they got that straightened out. And Mr. Arthur.
That's pretty nice of her, for her to come over and help her. You know, Stevie, I think, as a great.
I got to know Daryl a lot when I was running up there. Befriended so many people, and you saw some letters that come back from there. And we run a lawnmower race. Some company lawnmower brought lawnmowers out there. That gun Fluky Buford, me and Daryl got on the big ones, and Fluky got on the little one. He could reach around and override the governor. He run off and left us. But anyway, I got to know Daryl pretty well.
Yeah.
And so
you go to Victory Lane.
Go to Victory Lane. Yeah, there's a picture out there that people always give me trouble about. But the Victory Lane was just, they come out there and the reporters was everywhere, and they said, who is this guy? And J.D. Holt's wife down here in Hueytown, she called up at the Nashville Speedway, and she said, who won the race? And she said, ma'am, hold on, we don't even know. They said, it's some kid from Nashville. Well, I wasn't no kid. I was 19.
And you went from Nashville.
Yeah. And they dug around. They said, the boy's name is Richard. She said, Richard Orton. And she went nuts. She started calling everybody down here and everything. Yeah. But we won that big race, and that was the biggest race of my career that I won. And then the next week we went to Maryville, Tennessee, and won a 150-lap race. So
wow.
We made a trip to North Carolina, hoping to run at Hickory and around, and it rained it out. So never did get to do that. But
so how many races you estimate you guys won in 1974?
Oh, we probably won about 20.
Wow, that's a lot.
Well, that's a lot for a year. I mean, the car, it was so consistent. It was so consistent. Like I said, the last race of the year, I had a few point lead, and I got up behind little Dave. He's in one of our cars. Yeah. And so I just stayed there and run second. So that would have been another one. But but everything just clicked real well. And I think the only downfall we had was when we first started. It was the help. You know how it is. The help is the main thing.
Did Dave win you said he won the race. So you won the points. Is that right? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah.
So I won the points. So
how many races do you think Dave drove that car?
He won 4 or 5 races in that little car.
Okay. So it was
him and Kip, they would get off on Friday nights sometimes when I had military training. And they would blast off to Pensacola.
I got you.
And they'd go to Pensacola wide open in that old Ford truck. I don't know how it ever stood it, but they get down there and little Dave won some races.
Especially let Dave drive the truck. It was getting punished.
Well, I always watched Dave when he'd run in the cadets and all the way up. He's done well.
Oh, great talent. Great talent.
As I started getting into racing, I used to talk to Big Dave.
Really fine man.
They had that car in Fairfield, down there in the little old garage. And I'd go up there sometimes and talk to them. Little red 56 Ford.
Wow.
He ran really, really good.
Yeah, good
and another guy I run with, I'd like to mention, we got him in the Hall of Fame up there before he passed away, Jerry McCormick.
Yes.
We come down the front straightaway there. I think it must have been in 68 because I was in that 56 Chevrolet bought a race.
And he was in Joe Antonoro's car.
Correct? The brother.
Joe? George.
Huh?
There was Joe, George.
Joe and George. What was that one's name? But it was his car.
Oh, okay. I got you.
It was his car. Mac.
Yeah. Okay. It was Mac's car.
Mac's car, and another tall guy was in it with Mac. I don't remember his name, but that's who he was driving.
And that car flips down. You're talking about the flip down?
Oh man, all the way down the front straightaway.
And he's halfway out of the car.
Christian Baptist Hospital. His head looked like a pumpkin.
Wow.
And that scared me to death.
Unbelievable that he survived there.
Oh yes.
I think the only wreck that's been compared to that wreck was probably one that that I created.
Yeah, that's right.
So,
that's right.
But and then it was nice to get him in, and again, he had a good career as well. Yeah. So 1974, you end up with a great season, and you're excited, and you've been interviewed, and you guys have got some really big plans for 75.
kind of sports writers and write-ups we had.
Got you.
As you say in that book, there's a lot.
They called you King Richard because you dominated.
Oh, yeah. A big write-up. Clyde Bolton.
That's correct. Yeah, and you shared a lot of your hopes and dreams in that. Yeah, but there's a caveat to all this. That's coming along that you probably know in the back of your mind that could be a problem.
That could be a problem. I was.
You're aware of this. You're aware that you're aware in the back of your mind,
right,
that there's a problem looming on the front.
To a point in this road, and something's got to be made.
Okay.
Vaughn tells me, he said, Bobby Allison's got a 70 model Monte Carlo. He said, I'm gonna buy it. We're gonna go to Riverside, California, and run the sportsman race. And I said, okay.
Your gut tightens.
Okay.
Your gut tightens.
Oh, yes, bad. He had already gone out there, like I told you before. He sat at the table and he went out there with Bobby, flew out there and sitting there he liked that kind of stuff. He sit there with AJ Foyt, Mario Andretti, all of those guys at the table eating. And he said, yes, we're going to come out here and race. Well, I knew in the back of my mind that I had military business obligations that I had to do, and it was part of what I had to do to keep my job down at the maintenance shop. So you're sitting here and you're thinking there is a window here of opportunity, right? That you've got to send a letter to Montgomery, to the military department in Montgomery, and you're going to ask them for a leave of absence, to see if we could make it as a full-time race car driver. All right. So you mentioned Joe Antonoro, and he's your boss. Joe Antonoro, my boss. We typed that letter out, sent it to Montgomery, and the colonel. So you've never mentioned a word of this to anybody at this point? No, I didn't, because I didn't want to upset anything. I understand the reason. I didn't want to upset anything with the race team, and I knew it was coming to a head. I had to make a decision. I had a wife, right, and I had a home in Hueytown, and I was doing all right. So I said, okay. So you typed this letter and it's sent to Montgomery. Right. And my wife was she agreed with it and everything. She said, well, we'll see if we can make good. And I had talked to Bobby about it, and I had talked to several people, and they said, Richard, we think you can do okay. And I said, well, that's a big step. And as you know, it's a lot of money spending. Sure. And I sent the letter. I never mentioned it. The letter comes back, and I open it up, and it says, I don't remember what rank I was at that time. And I open it up, and it said, Sergeant Orton said, we cannot grant you any leave of absence. You've been working for us for 5.5 years. And if you want to, when you come back, you got a real good record to put in for another job when you come back, but you lose everything that you compiled in these 5 years. And I thought back, and I said, man. Do you remember what month this was when you get the letter back? Oh, gosh. It's late in the season. The season was about over. Okay, it's about over. So it's going to be August, something like that, probably. Something like that, yeah. So when it came back, I just never really tell anybody. Round man, everybody. My wife was president of the Racing Wives Auxiliary. Everybody was expecting big things out of me. They knew that Round Man was building 2 Novas. I knew that I wasn't going to be able to drive them. Wow. And you talking about gut wrenching? That's gut wrenching, because I just all racing. Yeah. I spent many a sleepless night after that. Right. But you're talking with Darlene. You guys are. Yeah, we're on board with it. She said, okay, that'll be fine. But I know, but you're sitting there and you realize, Darlene, this ain't going to happen. I mean, it's not going to happen, because I can't give up a federal civil service job. That's back when you either had to work at Continental Can, TCI, this. And I got pay raises just boop, 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 up to $7, $8 an hour real quickly within a couple of years. Right. And I just. So what's the day like when you decide to
call your meeting with Mr. Von Author. It's you call him up, you ask to come to his house.
I went to his house.
You called him up and said, I need to talk to you.
Yeah. And he had a bedroom upstairs, and I walked up the steps and I sit down about the top, and I was talking to him, and I said, I've got a decision to make here. And I said, I don't think that our plans, and I wanted to do everything that his plans was to do. I said, I don't think I can make it. I don't think I can do it. And he never said, well, I'll get somebody else or anything else. And I knew the cars were getting close. And Kip, the granddaddy, he come up here one day, and Hamner said, the cars are ready. They said, Pop, we don't have no engines. Said, I ain't seen any money. The next week, Kip brought a suitcase full of money up here and said, here, Hamner, put some motors in these cars.
So you're there that night, and how's this conversation end?
We had a little conflict along with it too. When I got down to Daytona that year to the races, I went over. You get to point money from. Well, we had it was about $800 or so. I had it in my pocket, and
again, you're driven for free.
Yeah,
all year. You think you've earned this $800?
Oh, well, I kind of felt that way.
And he's not asking you for the $800.
He never did.
But you've got it in your pocket that if he did ask you, you're going to give it to him.
Probably.
But if he don't ask, you're going to leave with it.
Yeah, because I knew we were finished, and I was,
So you guys have a conversation, and what said the last 5 minutes of that conversation before you leave?
Well, I just told him, I said, I hate it, but and as much as I love this family and this race team, I said, I can't give up this Federal Civil Service job, and I can't keep this Federal Civil Service job without being at drill.
Right.
I mean, you may be sleeping the floor, sitting in the chair, but I got off many, many days from drill to go to BIR and race and Montgomery and race, but I had to come back and take a half a day off and go over there and fill in that time. Okay. But I got up in rank so much. I got up to be the first sergeant. I was in charge of 225 people over there. Mm-hmm. And you have to be there.
Right. You have to. Yeah.
You have to be there. There's no other way out. So I guess by being here on Rings, Gears, and Opinions, we've learned. I know Mr. Alton Jones. He never knew what happened.
And again, Alton's comes out Tuesday. His whole podcast comes out Tuesday, and we talk about this.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna mention it here because it's fitting. He gets a phone call from Von Author.
Right.
Von Author tells him to drive this, ask him if he wants to drive this race car. Well, it's basically a car of Round Man's that he's been driving for years. Forever. He knows he's watched you.
Yeah.
He knows this is a hot rod. So he candidly tells me when he gets a phone call, he accepts it.
Oh, yeah. Don't blame him.
No, but he don't know your situation.
Yeah. He probably hasn't up until this recently.
He's not till right now. So he don't know your situation, but he's a racer.
Yeah.
He wants to race. So he takes the ride, but in the back of his mind, he's concerned that he may have done something that impacted you in a negative way for all these years.
Everybody, the good Lord was controlling all that.
I know, but in his mind,
he didn't know.
No, he didn't know. I mean,
well, I'm kind of glad because them quarter elliptic cars that Bobby and Donnie had give them hell all year. But they won a lot of races too with the two cars.
Yeah.
But see what happened after that too.
But I need to go back. I need to go back to the night.
Okay.
Von Author, you tell him you can't do it. You walk out of his front door. And you get into your car.
Barely could crank it up. I mean, that was a hurt.
I can only imagine.
Yeah.
But you get the car cranked and you're starting to pull out of the driveway.
Right.
What's going through your mind?
Just how close knit we were with that family, myself and Darlene. You've seen the pictures where we go racing. They standing by that
Sure.
sign.
Yeah.
I mean, Jean and her, they were just hand in hand. She was young. That whole family, they were cousins come, and they didn't know nothing about racing, but they were there.
They were supporters.
They'd fight you over that
Right.
new car.
Yeah.
And they'd come out, and after the races was over, I believe if I'd have told them to go over there and jump on Lee Hurley, they'd have went right over there and got it.
No doubt about it.
But
you're driving off, and you know.
I had to stop, Ken. I got out on 280. I had to stop. Tears. I just said, this is the biggest. A lot of people would come to me and say, Richard, you've made it to the top of the local racing thing, and you was fixing to make that jump. And I look back at it now, and way the luck was with us in Hueytown, losing Davey, Bobby, Neil Bonnet. And I don't know whether I always said it was a good Lord's decision.
Yeah, you accept it now.
I accept it now. I didn't want to accept it then.
I can imagine. So you pull over on the side of the road. How long do you sit there?
Probably 10 or 15 minutes. I told Arlene, I said, that right there. I said, that just said, okay, now what do you do? This is not going to come back.
It ain't coming around again.
Ben. I said, I might get to drive somebody's car. And I did for several years. Just drove a few cars around. Yeah,
but never that deal,
nothing.
that world.
No.
You know it.
No. I mean, knowing when I walked through there with my helmet on Friday nights, that I had one of the best cars in the racetrack.
Yeah, you knew that people were paying attention.
That's right.
Everybody knew when Richard Orton walked through the gate.
That's how I got the King Richard name.
That's right. But everybody knew when Richard Orton walked through the gate.
Yeah.
And again, I say this all the time. When you lose your identity, I don't care if you're a professional football player or sports player or businessman or whatever else. If you're a great businessman and you have a great business and you sell it or retire or whatever, you ain't the guy you were
when you was
10
on top
minutes
of your
ago.
game. That's right.
And again,
that's right.
You walked in that man's house as King Richard, as Richard. Yeah.
Right.
And that is an adjustment for any man.
Oh yeah. Yeah, it was tough. But I had a little help from Joe Antonora. He had his car. Yeah. And we took that little old thing and we'd go up to Huntsville, we'd blast around, and I'd have a little fun here and there in Birmingham. And that's the cool part about it. You didn't quit. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? You didn't lay down. No. You didn't you had pain and regret. Yeah. But yet you still had. Every time I got in a car, Ken, I didn't get to drive the Camaros much, but the few times that I drove them, I ran the crap out of Jody Ridley a couple times over at Birmingham when he was winning everything.
That's right.
And
now, whose car are you in this Camaro that night? Tell me, you shared this with me.
It was Sonny Dawson's car. It was number 16.
Okay. Now, how do you get the opportunity to drive for Sonny?
Sonny and I were pretty close, and he was down at Long Lewis, and my sister-in-law worked at Long Lewis down there. Okay. And I used to see him down there all the time. And Lonnie played baseball with my son. Okay. My son was a little younger. Sonny would be down here at the ballpark all the time. We talked. Yeah. And JD would go down there. He liked it was a Bop car, the Howell design, and Bob built them. And Sonny got it, and he said, "You want to drive this thing?" Well, what happened? It was a 300 at Birmingham. Okay. Sonny got out. He got out of the car late in the race. Well, I got in it, man. I took off, and
That's more fitting for me because knowing Sonny ain't going to give you his ride. You know what I'm saying? Voluntarily.
No.
You know what I'm saying?
No.
So that makes sense. Okay. The 300 lap race at some point. He gets out.
He got out.
You get in this car.
I got in this car. This was when, it must have been 78. I guess it was 78, late 78.
Okay.
I got in that thing, man. It was headed to the front. Yep. Running like crazy.
What lap do you think you're getting in it?
Do what now?
About what lap do you think you are getting in the car?
It was late. It was probably about 75, 80 laps to go.
Okay.
And I got in the thing, and it was handling so good. I come off of 4, and I was bad about running right up next to where the old pit gate used to be. And it was running, and I hit with the right front, knocked the whole right front off of it late in the race. But I knew the car was good. So
Jody knew you were there.
So the next week,
okay,
me and JD went down to the garage down there in Hewittown, and we put it all back together.
Okay.
And Sonny says, "Well, you drive it." Jody Ridley was winning everything at Birmingham every time he came. And we ran, and I ran Jody. Me and him would run on, left everybody. And I was fixing to pass him, and Jody knew it. And the boys didn't put no gas in the car. It ran out of gas.
Did it really?
Yeah. And that's one I regret. But those little old cars were so much fun. Later on, Casper wrecked it over there going right past the pit gate into the pole somehow. And
I think, did Neil turn him that day?
Huh?
Did Neil turn him that day?
He might have.
I don't want to mix the stories up, but I think Neil had an issue.
Yeah.
And Neil turned him that day. I think
so, right there, and it turned him into the pole.
Oh, yeah, and it was a bad wreck.
Yeah, it was a bad wreck. It wasn't nothing left of the 16. It was tore up.
I'm going to tell this, and it may not be factual, but I'm going to tell it just because it's a Neil story.
Yeah.
But so Neil pulls in the pits and asked, I think it was Butch, said, did it kill him?
Oh, no.
He said, no, he's getting out. He said, dang it, sure should have.
Golly.
Because he knew it was a bad wreck. You know?
Yeah, well, it was a bad wreck.
Yeah. But I hope I'm correct on that. And again, I'll probably be corrected on that at some point in the future. But it was
Casper never would hurt. He never would run over anybody. I mean, that boy, he didn't want to.
No,
he didn't want to cause no problem to nobody.
That's
Casper
true.
Was always good. But all of those guys, you know, the racing family now that I've lost my wife to cancer.
Let's talk about Darlene. So Darlene gets sick with cancer.
She went to work one day. And
this is what year again?
Do what now?
What year did she get diagnosed?
It was 2004.
2004.
She was working at Tameron over there in the parts. And I noticed she had a necklace, a heart necklace. And she'd come home and she said, I knew she was hurting a little bit right here. She finally told me about it, and she's had it full of Advil. So I knew. I said, girl, you get over to the doctor now. So we got her over there to West End, and she had some kidney stone. And the doctor said, when do you want these out, Miss Orton? She said, yesterday. And he went in there, and it was gallstone. And it went on for a couple of hours, and something had already been a 20, 30-minute operation. And I was walking the halls over there, and it come out, and the doctor called me over there, and he said, I got a portfolio here of all these pictures, and it was just fussed up and all. And he said, she's got a mass on her cystic duct. And he knew. And about 2 weeks later, she seemed all right. She came home, and we had a condo down in Florida, and I didn't get to go. I was sending some furniture down there with a friend of mine, and I didn't even go to the doctor with her over there for her report, and I regret that to this day. But he sit her down and told her she had stage 3B cancer by herself. I don't know that I would have done that. I would have waited.
Right.
But anyway, I mean, she was strong as she could be. She accepted that. I remember sitting on the sofa at the house, and hospice people came, and they said, what's the matter with you, Miss Orton? She said, I got terminal cancer. I mean, she just, like it was, she's just so strong.
Wow.
So strong. Set an example for me. I'll tell you what. And I lost her December the 4th at 2:00 in the morning. I had 3 preachers and several people there with me when she died. Of course, you know, like that, most of the time people fluid just consumes them.
Right.
And you really drown is what happens. But anyway, I had her for 35 years. That's 35 years that I sure enjoyed and miss her greatly. But, you know, you just like you said about the racing, change, and I feel like the good Lord's controlling all the cards, and He's got the answer.
True. We're not in control.
Yeah, and but I'll tell you what, my wife, when I first met her, I'll tell you this little story. I had that Kelly Arbor orange car, and she didn't have nothing to do, so she said, "I'll go out with him."
Mm-hmm.
And I wheeled up over there, and she said, "Racers, oh my God." And she said, "Why am I doing this?" So she goes out with me, and she comes to find out that the racing family, when we had Tom Glore and everybody that we had over there at BIR, and they had the racing auxiliary, you know.
I think there was like 45 women, I looked up the other day, involved in that.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it was great. Jerry McCormick got hurt, man. They covered that up. They helped him out. But raised money, all kind of stuff. They were great with what they did. And she said, you know, this bunch is about as good as people as you'll ever see. Yeah. And she was worried about it to start with.
Sure. Yeah. But
and they made in 1974, they made a quilt, made it out at Bobby Allison's house out here. And it had all of our names on it. And a lady won it over there at BIR. Well, great day. 3-4 years ago, she come back and said, "I've got this quilt." Said, "I'm going to donate it back to the club." Wow. Well, the club got it. And then Burt Belter made a case for it, and it's hanging up there at the.
Isn't that cool?
Isn't that cool?
It is cool. Yeah.
I told somebody the other day, I said, I got in the Hall of Fame. My daddy got in the Hall of Fame. And my wife's sitting up there with a fit quilt in the Hall of Fame. So I got everybody covered.
You did.
A poor old Richie. He ain't going to make
it. He's going to be in the auto parts.
He's going to be in the
Hall of Fame.
Yeah. That's what he'll be. Yeah.
Your son, Richie. Yeah.
He'll be down there in, What's the man's name that owns Town and Country? He likes Richie. He likes Richie.
He'll be on the walls of the Town and Country for years to come.
That's right. Mr. Watts.
That's right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, Richard, I thank you for taking your time today to come and share your story with me.
Well, I had to go back and look at some of that stuff and read some of that stuff to remember the early stuff.
Yeah.
But a lot of people have come back and told me, they said, "Richard, you cut your career too early." I said, I didn't have a good car.
Okay.
I said, I think I showed I could have drove those little cars if I'd had one. But and then I didn't go to the races for a long time, and I just it was hard. That was a hard.
No, there's no doubt. Thing. I mean, again, you're everybody dreams of having a wife and a relationship.
Yeah,
like you had.
Yeah,
but they also dream of having a race car
and
an opportunity like you have.
That's right.
And for you to have had both.
Yeah. I had both, plus I had, good Lord, let me have a decent job where I could eat every day, where I could raise a son. And Richie probably told you, every Christmas, if I bought him a bicycle, I had a motorcycle he had somewhere.
Right, exactly right. Yeah, that's right.
But, spoil them.
That's right, exactly. Yeah.
That's what you're supposed to do.
That is. But you looking back down that road, it's been a pretty good life.
It has. I wouldn't take anything for it. And like I said, you race, well, I'd say even 16 years, maybe when I was racing all the time and win 10 championships.
Absolutely.
I mean, I had to consider that a pretty good career.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, again, thank you for your time. This is going to be a hit.
Well, I appreciate you having this. I stay up at night up there at the lake, and I've learned how to get on Facebook, and I've been listening to things that I've learned, and it's things that I missed over my career with guys racing, and I enjoy it. And you do some more of it.
I'm going to keep doing it. We're going to keep doing it and have more guests on, because your stories are well worthy of being told.
Oh gosh, everybody needs to not forget us.
That's right.
We'll be dead and gone, but don't forget us.
That's right. Well, this will be living on for a long, long time.
Okay. Thank you, Ken.
Thank you, Richard. I appreciate it. Have a great day.